Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Tonight, we're going to have like two, I would say that they're very related stories. The first one being Gavin Ortlund is, defending the third Wayism legacy of Tim Keller. And it's kind of cringy that, multiple people have done videos about it. So it must be that bad. And I know Stephen Wolf did a video on it. Robles has done a video on it. I'm excited to weigh in on it as well. Just because Gavin Ortlund to me is just someone that I do believe is a bad actor in the Christian YouTube space. He goes to, and it's just something worth reiterating every time we talk about Gavin Ortlund. He goes to a horrendously unbiblical church. This is a church that has some pretty evil people on staff. You got Sam Alberry, who's an openly homosexual pastor, who touts the side B theology. You have, and founded a gay affirming organization called Living Out over in the UK, which has a test on their website to know how gay affirming your church is. So, Living Out, literally in the name. And then Russell Moore is another public theologian in residence or something like that. So this is a church that has Russell Moore on staff. Russell Moore is the editor at large. That's a recent development. He was the editor in chief or whatever at Christianity Today, but now he's the editor at large at Christianity Today. And that's a horrendous publication. This week they sent Taylor Swift, just like the Gospel Coalition and Samuel Say sent Taylor Swift. So you love to hate on that. And I read that article, so you don't have to. And you can find that over at evangelicaldarkweb.org. And sign up for our free newsletter, and you would have gotten that article because it might have been a little too cringeworthy for YouTube. And then of course there's Ray Ortlund, who endorsed Kamala Harris. So obviously, he's a liberal guy. It's again a horrendous church. And then John Piper's other son is a pastor at that church. So this is not only a church that has a lot of bad dudes at it, but it really loves collecting like celebrities and stuff like that. It really trades in celebrity Christianity more than probably any other church that I can think of.
Oh, Preston would.
Oh yeah, Prestonwood would probably be a close second. You're right. That is but as far as villainous ones, yeah. So is Russell Moore being replaced at Christianity Today? Hard to say. Like, you could view editor at large versus editor in chief. I was talking with the internal team of Evangelical Dark Web, and that was kind of framed as a like a editor in residence, like a theologian in residence, which is kind of the job. Theologian in residence is, I believe, Gavin Ortlund's job title at this church where he serves with Russell Moore. So
it could be a transition out. That is a possibility.
Gavin Ortlund is Big Eva's chance to win the next generation. He is talented on YouTube enough. That is for sure. It's not questionable. He is Russell Moore, the next Russell Moore. He is Russell Moore's prodigy. They go to the same church, and Russell Moore, while editor-in-chief of Christianity Today, gave Gavin Ortlund's book an award last year. So obviously there's no conflict of interest there since they go to the same church, but they don't care about that at Christianity Today. Russell Moore is advancing Gavin Ortlund's career, and it's because Gavin Ortlund is bought out. This guy is for sale. So with that said, we're going to dive into this video, which I have not seen. You have seen. I've seen like this Stephen Wolf clip going after it. And yeah, that was good. That was good stuff. So hopefully we'll get more of that tonight. Maybe say some things he didn't say. So I would say that they're very related stories. So let's dive in. If I can find it.
Overall, my thoughts is that the video was kind of like, okay, it's kind of what you would expect from Stephen Wolf. He's kind of like refuting someone that doesn't quite know what he's talking about. And that's kind of how it came across.
I mean, there are many such cases in just this space of people doing that. So all right, here we go. And we're going to listen to this at 1.25 speed just for efficiency's sake. And let's dive in.
To politics and culture war right now is a huge issue. Lots of people are contrasting Tim Keller's approach, sometimes called the third way approach, with more bold approaches like Charlie Kirk's approach. That's been one construct you see. By the way, if you're going to do that, please take into account differences of calling and context. Tim Keller is a pastor in New York City, was a pastor and church planter. Charlie Kirk is more of a political and cultural and religious commentator doing debates on university campuses. He talks about theology as well, but he's got a different calling. It's like if you're going to compare these two people, it's like saying, Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan, look at them both playing golf. Wow, Tiger Woods is so much better. And you don't mention, actually Michael Jordan wasn't mainly a golf player. He was in the NBA. He was a basketball player. That was his main thing. However, in this video, what I want to do is assume that you, the viewer, agree with the criticism of third way that is very popular right now. I mean, third way is, it's in tough days right now. And you think this is it's just your patience is totally done. That's the sense I get from people is we just need to kill this, bury it, leave it behind, and even just mock it on the way as we're walking away from the grave. Just nothing but contempt. That's what you get from some quarters. Others not that extreme. I try not to make the extremes representative of everybody, but there's real energy against this right now. I'm trying to understand that. But let me say this in this video. I'm going to assume it's correct. And I'm going to make 3 appeals for if you're persuaded of that, could I appeal to you to do this as you're leaving third wayism dead in the gutter? Can you please hear these 3 appeals? And the spirit of this is I think Christians can actually sometimes be of good faith and have disagreements about these questions, and how we conduct our disagreements matters for the sake of the kingdom of God. So hear me out that, even if we disagree, we can still maybe think about how we might, and I'll listen to your appeals too in the comments. Or if people make response videos, Number 1, please don't caricature third wayism. If it needs to be critiqued, let it be critiqued at its best. If it needs to be exposed as bad and then killed and left behind, let it be exposed, killed, and left behind through steel manning, not through straw manning. I see.
So this is something to bring up already, is that this is not the first video he's done defending third wayism.
Yeah,
I believe,
for a second,
yeah.
I thought he was like all the clips going around about and Wolf's response video was to an older video, not like this video. I thought it was to the video you did a video on like a while back. But one thing to note is that like Wolf's first like point on this issue is that like third wayism isn't actually like an ideology or a like vision or a positive vision. It's simply just a methodology of approaching or reacting to the culture. And Wolf would add to a select audience. So generally speaking, for someone like a Tim Keller, his third way audience was particularly New York elites. He was trying to appeal to that group of people, those coastal elites. So yeah, and like third wayism generally doesn't actually espouse any sort of like positive platform or positive vision. It's just obviously it's characterized as kiss left, coddle, or punch right, and that generally is true because that's how the New York elites think. That's how the West Coast people think.
So this is in vogue right now, not just because of the Charlie Kirk thing, but also J.D. Greer is coming out with a book. He also defended third wayism, and he talked about, I punch right more because there are more Christians on the right. Or the Southern Baptist Convention's a lot more conservative than it is liberal. So he made that argument. Gavin Ortlund has made the argument in the past. So again, let's steelman his position by harkening back on what his position was earlier in the year, I believe. And that is that, third wayism does not mean that the truth is squarely in the middle, the right and the left. It could be 80%, 80-20 and, all this other nonsense, 80% closer to the right, it's a sliding scale or whatever. And yeah, the truth is that the truth is to the right of the right. And that is the issue with the third way approach. It's not in the middle of 2 extremes. The truth
Even
is far
just
more extreme than the right extreme.
I mean, even just positing it as somewhere on the sliding scale, even if it's not 50-50 down the middle, is just kind of again, it goes back to the fact that it's not actually offering its own vision. It's just critiquing both sides from the middle. And really, you're just sitting on the fence.
And one thing to note is that what is the comment section full of for this video? It is full of liberals, political liberals, or people who identify as politically homeless. So there's not really what's the way to put it? So the comment section is full of politically homeless, their words, people praising this approach. And guess what? Politically homeless people don't accomplish anything in politics. So
Well, neither do
this is not a
centrists.
good approach because it doesn't accomplish anything.
Now, can we also compare like the whole Charlie Kirk to Tim Keller thing? The problem isn't so much that they had different roles; was that they were actually on opposite sides. It's not one, Tiger Woods played golf, Michael Jordan played basketball. It's actually that they were actually opposed to each other on political issues. Tim Keller was basically more or less pro-abortion. He was
Functionally, yes.
He was definitely pro-homo, and in a way that Charlie Kirk was not when he died. Not 2018, 2019. Charlie
Yeah,
Kirk
like
was
after
talking,
Charlie Kirk had some kids, he actually became anti-gay marriage. Like I don't think he was really anti-gay marriage until 2022, for instance. And no, not personally against gay marriage because that doesn't mean anything. So, yeah, that's a good point to bring up. Is that the comparison to?
and again, he was not
but they were
for
on
mass.
opposite sides.
He was not for mass immigration replacing the domestic population.
Whereas the Gospel Coalition was praising that as a necessity in the UK over a year ago. So let's get back to it.
A lot of rank caricatures of third wayism, the idea that it is moral equivalency, the idea that it means detachment, like we just avoid the issues, where it's cowardice, retreating, and so on and so forth. For years, proponents of third wayism and others like other constructs like this, if you don't like that language, fine, have been addressing this and clarifying this and saying this is not what it is. Tim Keller, for example, has always said it is not about finding a middle ground. It is about nothing other than following the Bible, no matter what, even if the world sees you as an extremist. Christopher Walken wrote this excellent book, Biblical Critical Theory. It's very clear that third wayism is not splitting the difference between the major political parties that are currently operating. Not only is that not the way forward, that's actually wandering from the faith. Rather, the goal is nothing other than letting the Bible set the table. The Bible does not fit into the modern world. It will rearrange the furniture, so to speak. Trevin Wax makes this point very clearly that we should not stay above the fray. We should not make it sound like there's moral equivalency between the two parties. There isn't. J.D. Greer, by the way, Griffin Gulledge is the one who drew my attention to that older article. All of these articles are years old. So you'd hope that people would interact with this stuff. It's been out there forever. But a lot of the ways you hear third wayism represented, you're like, that's not you can tell they're not trying to put it in a way that a proponent of this could recognize. But I was going to say, Griffin Gulledge is the one who drew my attention to that older article of Trevin's in a tweet, and I thought he made a great point about the danger of a warmed over and politically flavored homogeneous unit principle. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Great insight there. J.D. Greer has an article up at the Gospel Coalition, and it's based on his new book where he talks about this, and he's very clear. It is not that both sides are morally equivalent. And he talks about the particular evils enshrined in the Democratic Party. If you disagree with all of these people, if you disagree with this whole way of thinking, fine, but interact with these clarifications rather than continue to articulate third wayism as in a way that no one who holds to that would recognize.
You go.
So again, one thing Wolf actually did bring up is that they're not actually offering a true third way. They're offering some form of just moderate liberalism or centrism. And if they were actually offering a third way, they'd be like a distributist, which is a genuine third way from the current political paradigm.
Can you define that?
Distributism, I mean, it does recognize a need for property ownership while also saying that you should not have high concentration of wealth in like the upper class. So it does understand that there should be a distribution of wealth across the classes without necessarily state-ran or command economy. It would also have financial implications that would be against usury. Ideas like a national dividend would probably
right. So what you're saying, what you're describing, is some sort of economically, I don't want to say totalitarian or even liberal, but economically populist, but right wing, socially type of movement.
Well, I'm just saying
there is a political block for. There is not a political block for fiscally conservative and socially liberal. That political voting block does not exist.
I mean, technically, if you were a monarchist, you would technically be advocating a third way. But I mean, again, if you're trying to like play the middle between the left and the right, you're not actually advocating a third way in a true sense. You're just advocating some form of liberalism.
You're just advocating what Congress has been for the last 30 years. But What's even interesting is like the whole concept of red state and blue state is actually a recent phenomenon. Like it is Bush 2 recent. Like
Well, if we're
there
going to be honest,
Nebraska had a Democrat senator in like 2003 or something like that. Like red state, blue state's a very recent phenomenon in American history because
but that's
most states
also,
were kind of purple.
but that's because
Really
of
going back.
demographics.
It is because white people started trending more red.
Well, they
And
imported a bunch of people.
that
And again,
also,
it's funny
yes.
how he made the reference to like homogenous unity, which you can't have unity without a homogenous population. So,
But okay, but so far it's like Gavin Ortlund's own defense of third wayism from the past was that it's not exactly between the right and the left, meaning the Republicans and the Democrats in the context of third wayism. So, it could 90% of the truth could be on the side of the Republicans, and then you're really going to talk about the 10% of the lies that they indulge in, whereas you maybe talk about the 90% of the lies that the Democrats have, but you with mittens on, kitty gloves on, while praising them disproportionately for the 10% of the truth that they have. That is how third wayism plays out. Like, oh, the Democrats are the party that cares about the poor. Yeah, which isn't true at all.
yeah, I mean, that actually is not a steel man argument. That's a straw man. Like, that's just a fig leaf.
So,
That's not necessarily to say that the GDP line must go up. Republicans care about the poor either.
yeah, I'm not saying that one side cares about the poor when I calling out that the other side doesn't care about the poor. But
the poor
at the
will
end of the
always be
day,
with
yes, but at the end of the day, like people being poor is a political reality that's not going to change. So let's get back into it.
What is third wayism? In a nutshell, it is very simple. The thinking is this: contemporary conservative politics, especially in the United States, has important differences from historic Christianity. And even if those differences are not as dire as the political left, they are still important enough that they are worth pointing out. From our perspective, this is not really a third way. It's just the first way. We just want to follow Jesus, and it is that simple. Second appeal, and this flows right out of that.
Okay, so he talked about contemporary conservative politics being different from historic Christianity. How? Let's actually itemize. Let's actually provide an answer for that. One, historic Christianity does not believe in religious freedom for pagans.
Well, I mean,
There's number one.
He's essentially going to equate like historic Christian teaching, or that the church always believed like something that is like 1980s Reaganism, or like that's kind of you see that a lot, and it gets worse when he starts name dropping like church fathers and stuff.
Republican form of government, that's contemporary conservatism, but it's not supported in scripture. I'm not even saying it's a bad form of government.
I mean, it depends. If you want to say like the period of the judges is a like republic, because I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't. I would actually say that the judges were closer to monarchs.
Fair. Well, yes,
especially since Abimelech was declared himself a king in the book of Judges. So he was a king, and then he died by a woman, which,
Well, I mean, a lot of like, if you look at like Rutherford or even like a Josephus, they would liken like the elders gathering together as like a senate or a parliament. So I mean, there are certainly Republican aspects of the Old Testament, but again, that's not necessarily we need to have that or it's biblically supported.
Right. And then what's another difference that comes to mind? Shilling for a foreign nation. Yeah, I don't think the Bible tells us to shill for a foreign nation of tiny hat, Satan worshippers.
Actually, they were told expressly not to rely on the Egyptians for help. So the pharaohs with their little whatever hats, they're not supposed to rely
on. They had pointier hats, small or not small, big pointy hats. All right.
Is beware of the no enemies to my right mentality. Now, most of you get this. Most good faith people who disagree with me on these questions, thank you. Truly, thank you. You agree with this, you get this, you're not going to push back on this point, most of you. But what I think is more dangerous is those who will say, and maybe you've been feeling this already, is, okay, yeah, that's true. Technically, there's some bad stuff on the right, but it's not a big deal. There's a few people over there that need a nudge, but that's not the real threat. Stop putting the focus, stop acting like this is something that's big that we need to talk about, and so on and so forth. And let me make an appeal if that's how you feel. I understand. First, I would just say we got to remember all of us are affected by the algorithms. All of us. Okay. So all I'm saying from this point is we need to listen to each other for the experiences others have had. Believe me, if you can believe me, I really am trying to listen, and I'm learning from people who disagree with me. I'm saying, okay, I got to see the world through their eyes.
That's cap. Just for a second. Just to call that out, this guy, Gavin Ortlund, does not listen to people who disagree with him. He just blocks them like it's nothing. Like he's very liberal with the block button. He does not listen to the other side. Just to be clear, like he's a liar here.
What experiences have you had?
And just to point out the reverse, I don't block anyone on social media. There's a no block policy on evangelical dark web.
I mean, you'd have to be like some kind of like foreigner or a scammer to be blocked by me.
And yeah, I mean, my DMs are filled with women hitting on me that are totally legit,
wow.
Right?
Where are mine?
No, they're all bots and scammers, but it's like, wow. No, you have to actually look for that stuff because the algorithm hides that from you. Like, oh, you got all these spam DMs. Like, they don't just show you that, but I did look in because there are some good legitimate DMs that got thrown in there. So I was catching up on DMs today. I'm like, wow, look at all this spam. Anyway, yeah, I don't block people on social media, whereas Gavin Ortlund does because, he does not believe in dialoguing with the other side. Just saying.
But the algorithms tend to confirm our biases. And so we need to be aware of, okay, I got to listen to what other people are saying because it might not all be coming up on my feed. I might think something's not a big deal because I don't see it. But the reason I don't see it, I'm not omniscient. It may not be served up to me through the algorithm. Many of us in real life have had pastoral experiences, church experiences, and relational experiences that convince us that, yes, there are some things on the right that are a problem. There are various forms of overreaction against wokeness, unhealthy forms of hypermasculinity working out in a marriage relationship that's really toxic and bad, undersensitivity to the sin of racial prejudice, including even anti-Semitism, explicitly so in some circles. I wish I could say these were small problems that don't even merit mentioning. But unfortunately, especially spending time on the internet, interacting with young men, seeing what they're being influenced by, yes, these are real issues. Let me mention two that I think are particularly...
And, is he going to mention anti-Semitism as one of the two? Because it's like, historic Christianity, people. Anyway, Martin Luther.
Increasing a need to be addressed. First, the sheer amount of lack of charity in discourse. There is a real viciousness to the way discussions happen. And in online spaces right now, especially on X, the cancel tactics of the far left are being mimicked in the reverse direction by the far right. And there's a certain demographic of people that will swarm and then seek to utterly discredit a person. And the people being targeted are often pretty conservative, but they represent a threat or a challenge in some way or another, and so they are effectively canceled. It's ugly. It's not edifying. It's not constructive. There's a lot of name calling, pretty gross and sexual insults at times. And then those things get defended as though that was courageous.
This is just crap as well. Like, who the most canceled person on the right is Nick Fuentes. Like him or not, or like an Alex Jones. Those would be like the number one and number two most canceled people on the right.
So is this like James Lindsay's actually conservative, or Joel Berry is actually right wing, and he's fairly conservative even though he's not? He's just a Zionist,
right? And here's the thing:
is that who the conservatives that are being absolutely mocked are? Is James Lindsay, because I don't even know who he's talking about per se. Yeah. Unless he's trying to say that he's a conservative, but he's being called a liberal, and he's just referring to himself.
Yeah, who's actually getting canceled on the right because they're not right-wing enough?
And again, the biggest...
Tucker Carlson, again, a lot of people want to cancel him. A lot of people want to cancel Candace Owens. And I think she's crazy. I'm not advocating Candace Owens, but people want to cancel her. Like, there's a movement to cancel Tucker Carlson. There's a movement to cancel Candace Owens, maybe even Megyn Kelly. Obviously, Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones are kind of like OGs of being deplatformed, along with Andrew Torba. So who are these really conservative people that are being canceled by the people that he's talking about, the people that he's criticizing? Who are they? This is where naming names is actually helpful. And if you're not naming names, you're not speaking with clarity. He's not pointing to any specific example here, and that's muddying the water. It's just useless
Well,
speak
again,
at
the
this point.
biggest example of like I won't say right wing cancel culture would be like the whole Jimmy Kimmel and the blowback to Charlie Kirk. Aside from that, there really hasn't been any like widespread use of cancellation on the right against those on the left.
But Jimmy Kimmel's
And
not conservative, so by any
again,
means, so that's not who he's
the
talking about.
and let's be
But
honest, the
yeah, that's the
biggest
best example.
of the let's just call him the kosher containment right. The biggest person that's complaining about being canceled is James Lindsay, who literally complained about losing speaking engagements. But when again, his whole business right now is just picking fights with people.
That's the only way he gets seen is to internet beef with people because, I don't believe he has like his own YouTube channel. And then he has his own Patreon like system that was created by Michael O'Fallon. So, they're in a business relationship spreading anti Christian ideas.
Now,
Like sex
again,
and gender are different concepts.
now
It's
if
an
you want to
anti
talk
Christian idea, by
about
the way.
Christian discourse that is, let's just say, not charitable, the biggest example I see is the like, let's just say the Protestant, Catholic, Orthobro, all these like factions doing their stupid slop apologetics. And again, they're not necessarily right wing. And again, that includes a lot of people that are certainly, literally on both sides, because you still got like Raheem Zoomer. His whole thing is posting more coal about this stuff. Then you have obviously a bunch of
Curse
Catholics.
the ACNA is what he said today. Or
Yeah,
recently.
five solas. You have
Some
Sola Chad,
Chad,
like
some
all these
Lizzie.
like
Yeah.
all these Lizzie Marbach, Totters, and on Steve Dace. Like again, if you want to talk about like people that are a lot of them, let's just say a crowd that leans conservative, you have the slop apologetics crowd that are doing these stupid internecine battles when there's actual problems happening in the world. And yeah, you could say they're not being civil, they're not being charitable. And again, this would also include James White, who participates in this sort of slop apologetic stuff. So yes, there is an area where Christian discourse is not very charitable, and that would be it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind trolling the Catholics, but it's not my personality to do so. I'm more focused on the evangelicals, and hey, if we can fix the evangelicals, we we're the lone bulwark, we're an actually impactful voting bloc, so it's like, wow, this country is really going to be up and going if we actually save rescue the evangelicals from wokeness like Gavin Ortlund. But again, who's getting canceled? He doesn't name names, and that is just entirely unhelpful. We're actually doing better at coming up
Yeah,
with
I've actually came
examples.
up with examples. I've actually steel manned his position.
But it's not the third wayism isn't an approach to that, and it's not really addressed at all by that. So,
And a lot of times there's just sheer lying and slander that is utterly disgraceful. And it's totally appropriate to say, I'm broadly historically conservative. I'm pro life. I'm going to stand against the far left. I just want to be a faithful Christian. But I'm allowed to talk about these problems on the right, these sins of speech, for example, this lack of charity and disagreement, and not shrug that off. If I were to shrug off sins of speech as though they're not a big deal, I would be going against about 1/3 of the New Testament. Read James chapter 3, for example, about how the tongue can send you to hell. Think about the words of our Lord, who's saying, when you insult your brother, you're liable to the fire of hell. Okay, we are allowed to take this seriously when our Lord is saying this can send you to hell. And if I may be blunt, those kinds of sins of speech are playing out, escalating in our online discourse. We have a major issue. This is not a small matter. How we talk to each other matters. Just to speak vulnerably, when I put out a video on these topics, it is shocking. The emails I will get, the things that people will clip out and try to spin this way and that way and so forth. There is slander. It is a problem. And it's okay to take that seriously and try to address it. Another issue is the constant separating and fighting and being suspicious of other people over secondary and tertiary doctrines. This is increasing in the world, not decreasing. It's a problem on the right. It's a problem we need to address. We're allowed to take this seriously. So historically, in fundamentalist circles, you can look back 80 years and see how this would happen with other issues.
note the liberal tends to hate fundamentalism, and that's like the enemy of progress in Christianity.
No, even just the
Just note
notion,
his disposition there.
even just like the notion that like I mean, generally when you're talking about fundamentals, like the fundamentalists from like 100+ years ago, they're not the same thing as what would be called a fundamentalist today. Which I mean, again, his version of fundamentalism is like young Earth creationist. Um, I mean, I guess again, like a Presbyterian,
Local or global flood believer.
like a conservative, an actually conservative PCA person is not necessarily a fundamentalist because they're not really like they're a
And
confessional Christian. They're
and let's just keep in mind that Tim Keller was not an inerrantist because he believed that the first 11 chapters of Genesis were poetry and not narrative. He did, he's a theistic evolutionist who posited the view, but he never articulated what he actually believed. There were proto-humans that God chose one and made Adam, made that person
that's
Adam.
N.T.
And stuff like
Wright
that.
did espouse that view.
Yeah.
Or does.
So,
I mean, again, that's
this is in Tim Keller's writing on Biologos, which was again, theistic evolution, theologically liberal website that was, or organization that was founded by Francis Collins, someone praised as a Daniel-like figure by Tim Keller. He compared him to Daniel as a public servant, even though the guy's record was horrendous. So, the one of the problems with Gavin Ortlund and Tim Keller is they call evil good. Tim Keller, before he died, praised the gospel presentation or gospel witness of Stephen Colbert. And the clip that Keller was referring to, there was no real gospel in there.
well. Let me just clarify what the fundamentalist actually is. These are the 5 points of fundamentalism: inerrancy, virgin birth, substitutionary atonement, bodily resurrection, and authenticity of miracles. Again,
we got to remember that back then, the virgin birth was one of the most attacked points of Scripture. And maybe that drove some Catholic doctrine regarding Mariolatry and the more recent dogmas that they've canonized. But who knows? Moving on.
The timing of the rapture, the nature of the rapture, its relation to the tribulation, something like this. Okay, we can look back with 80 years of perspective and say, they probably shouldn't have splintered their whole movements over these kinds of differences. But we're doing that again today. And I think one of the big areas is this one, over politics. That's what I'm trying to say. Whatever else we do, can we stop being so much at each other's throats over these kinds of issues?
So it's interesting that he brings up eschatology. You know who's actually splintered? Again, that's all dispensationalism that did that. Because amillennials and post-millennials could pretty much get along with each other. Pre-millennials, not as much of a history of getting along with the others as the, if we want to go back. But yeah, it's interesting that he points that out. And what are the fractures in modern Christian political thought? One, support Israel or not support Israel. That is a huge fracture. And the reason why is because it has been detrimental for the United States to support Israel. It has not worked out well. We have not been blessed by supporting Israel, but you have a bunch of people using the Bible to say we must give this country money. We must
give them money.
Israel.
We must give them support. We must, you'll hear the whole pray for Jerusalem, which again, you're actually robbing that the prayer in question, the psalm now applies to the church. So again, these are actually theologically significant. They do bear out in practice and in practical theology. And again, you are basically saying that if you don't believe this, you are in sin. You are against God. You are you are essentially bringing a curse upon us. So there is vast implications for those that oppose dispensationalism that are implicit in their view.
So that's just one area. Then you have the people that say, "Oh, we can't legislate morality," which maybe you're not hearing that argument as much as you used to, but that was certainly the liberals in the church saying we can't legislate our morality, and they want to maintain pluralism. They believe that pluralism is good. And the anti-Christian nationalists, the people like Amanda Taylor, who wrote this nice, ugly book, which is eerily similar to the cover of J.D. Greer's ugly book about opposing Christian nationalism. And the whole book is about it is a Christian's duty to maintain religious pluralism. So there are those people. And then you got the people in between that functionally, want to use believe that it's a Christian's duty to have open borders and stuff like that. And to go along with race narratives. And there's a lot of fissions, but really The only ones that really matter are the Israel question. I don't want to say Jewish question, but that question. And then I would say a debate between theonomy and Christian nationalism. Like those are really the two that matter, because outside of that is basically people like Tim Keller, who are functionally Democrats, and the Kellerites and their influence on the church has been horrendous.
So if you did want
So
to actually steelman a person who has lacked charity towards his opponents, who has derided them, who has called them rather nasty names, though, dressed in like, a lot of lipstick on the pig, that would actually be Doug Wilson. If you were to
thought you
actually
were going there.
if you were to actually put a name on it, given that he's accused his detractors of being fatherless men in basements or whatever, or angry young men, like, even though a lot of them are actually like very successful, they do things.
But here's the thing. I still think Doug Wilson's a Christian at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I do believe that Tim Keller was a false teacher. I do believe that people like Eric Mason and J.D. Greer are false teachers. The difference between Gavin Ortlund and I think the difference is, I believe that these people are infiltrating the church with because they not only want to destroy Christianity, but they know if they can destroy America, they can destroy the church in America. Because look at Europe, you destroyed the Christian nations in Europe, and now all of a sudden the church is dead. So they know that they can, Satan knows that he can run that same playbook in the United States. So you got a bunch of people infiltrating the church. People like Russell Moore existed to subvert the evangelical voting bloc. People like David French exist to subvert the evangelical voting bloc.
Isn't Rick Warren someone's on record saying that Rick Warren wanted to push the church as far liberal as he could?
And Rick Warren was very much beloved by Barack Obama. Just to, go back down memory lane. So that is why some of these people exist. And speaking of, liberal pastors, you know who praised Gavin Ortlund's video? This video by Gavin Ortlund? I should probably point this way. Andy Stanley, the gay affirming Andy Stanley, loved this video. Gave Gavin Ortlund a big shout out.
So if you do want to actually make a point of people you should definitely not be charitable to on the internet, the egalitarians. Again, that's a real issue in the PCA right now. Is the
and they're the Kellerites.
Yes, they're the Kellerites.
So, good point on the egalitarians, because
and yes, again, a female pastor is a
heretic.
They are a heretic. They have zero assurance of salvation, because it's essentially like you go to work every day, you're actually like committing sin. So
there's this all or nothing package deal way of thinking. That's what comes in. It's the same kind of thing with the pre-trib versus post-trib rapture, but now it's political issues. So for me, if I'm passionately pro-life, which I am, I would give my life for that in a heartbeat. If I defend a traditional view of marriage as between one man and one woman, which I do, tomorrow I'm flying to a conference to speak on that. But if I believe in climate change, which I also do, then now I'm the enemy. It's like, you're down the line, stepped out of line, banish them from the camp. This is...
Okay, first of all, climate change is a scam eschatology. And he has advocated for government intervention on the issue. What does that mean?
It means your taxes go up.
Yeah, it means your taxes go up, prices go up, things become unaffordable.
Even if we go back to the gay thing for a second, does he actually believe that you should be allowed to discriminate against homosexuals and transgenders in the workplace or in businesses?
J.D. Greer doesn't.
Like, that's... I'm against gay marriage. Okay, but are you fine with discrimination? Are you fine with criminalization? Or are you what two people do in their bedroom is their decision? It's like, which again, that's not actually what the Bible says about adultery, by the way. But
yeah.
So is he actually to the right, or is he just like, we shouldn't be mean to? No, we should. Like,
King Asa is praised for using the state to crack down on paganism or idolatry and homosexuality.
But again, he would probably, I'm against gay marriage, but we should treat these people nice. And it's like, no, we actually, like, denigrating them is what has actually moved the needle back.
There's actually now fewer young people identifying as transvestites And I think it's because the social stigma has gone back up.
Yes.
We stopped celebrating it and started stigmatizing it again. And now all of a sudden the rates of people identifying as this have gone down.
You know, calling people British cigarettes actually works.
So, all right, here we go. We're going to get through this.
This kind of way of thinking. And it's the same fundamentalist mindset that just won't allow for critical thought and making distinctions and having a sense of proportion. The very word nuance is now seen as a bad word in some circles. And so the appeal that I would make for people today, especially people like good faith people who are kind of sorting their way through this and disagree with me, and you're saying, yeah, third wayism is bad, we need to bury that and move forward. Okay, fine. Please hear this appeal. Please don't stop addressing problems like this on the right. Okay, let's revive a historic evangelicalism, not create a new fundamentalism. Historic evangelicalism was a balancing act between different alternative errors. What people like Billy Graham and Carl Henry and Harold John Ockenga were explicitly trying to do is say no to the liberals over there, but also no to the fundamentalists over there. They both have problems. We need to fight in multiple directions. Some of us feel a similar kind of mindset right now. Third appeal, and that this flows out of that, is historical perspective. This can really help us right now. It can calm and helpfully complicate the current dialectics and fractures that are like fizzling up right now. So, and it just will help our disagreements go better. Let me just give an example. Most Christians today like C.S. Lewis. Not everybody.
Finally, an example.
But most people think, hey, C.S. Lewis, he's a good guy. He's on our team. If C.S. Lewis were alive today, he would be tarred and feathered by both the right and the left. That is the polarized world we live in. That is a fact. We know why the left wouldn't like him. He's an Orthodox Christian. He believes in a very traditional view of sexuality. He's constantly actually explicitly warning against progressivism. Read a book like that, Hideous Strength. He talks about that a lot. My favorite book. Talks a lot about, just the basics of the whole tenor of his thought, this emphasis upon humility before God. Okay, that's, he's going to get into trouble in a lot of circles for those things. But on the other hand, it can help give some historical perspective for us today to remember C.S. Lewis believed in evolution. C.S. Lewis rejected biblical inerrancy and accepted some of the findings of critical biblical scholarship. He said things that sounded very third way-ish. He was a very expansive, generous thinker.
So what he's saying is that C.S. Lewis is in hell right now.
But again, I'm not one to really be a huge C.S. Lewis thumper when it comes to his theology. He was great on logic. He's a great
good writer.
He is not. Again, the right would probably trash him most for opposing Franco in the Spanish Civil War. But
which Tolkien was a supporter of Franco.
You can't actually go out there and say, yeah, he would affirm these things today with the information that we have today, because we've made remarkable gains on the manuscripts since his time. We've made
archaeology.
The archaeological gains on even just refuting evolutionary theory on the manuscripts has drastically changed since C.S. Lewis was alive. So you can't necessarily use that example. Now, if you want to say C.S. Lewis would be for, I don't know, some form of social program, you could probably make that case that he would be consistent on that today.
So he uses historic perspective and then only goes back to 1945. Someone who was alive for the post-war consensus to take hold.
But yeah, he's using two separate issues that have drastically had material information changes. Because again, he believed it only because he saw the evidence at the time. If he would see the new evidence, would he still believe it? And Gavin Ortlund should be thinking more historically to understand that. Again, there's a lot of debate over the Septuagint. Well, a lot of the people at the Westminster Confession, a lot of the Calvinists during those days, they were probably more against Septuagint supremacy, so to speak. If you go back to Augustine seems like he's pretty pro Septuagint. So, again, that debate's happened. But again, the manuscript evidence has changed materially since then.
Yeah, so that's a good point to bring up, is that evidence changes over time. But your big argument for historic perspective is to go back to someone who is, alive during the post-war consensus era of American,
and he's arguing theological
British
points.
Politics.
He's arguing theological points and not even political points for C.S. Lewis.
Right, except when he was why the left would hate him.
Yeah.
Drew on philosophy and literature outside of the strictly evangelical canon. He invited people into a vision of the Christian life that is much larger and much richer and much more expansive. And I don't agree with him on all those things. I do believe in biblical inerrancy myself, for example. I'm not saying you have to agree with C.S. Lewis on those points. My point is this. It can help induce a little bit of clarity on the heat of the moment. and the intensity of our disagreements today. If you remember, if you want to, again, the appeal to the person who doesn't see things as I do, you don't like third wayism. If you remember, there's a lot of C.S. Lewis-ish Christians, if I said that right, who are alive today, and they are not your enemy. You can disagree with them. But again, the sense of proportion, they're acting in good faith. They're seeking the truth. Actually, by the way, if you disagree with C.S. Lewis on some of those things I just mentioned, I'm sorry, but if I may say, please don't just arrogantly dismiss him. He's a smart, sincere person. He came to his views on all those topics for particular reasons. Even there's a need for humility and engagement to understand and then disagree. So if you want to bury third wayism, the appeal that I'm making here is, what are you going to build in its place? Are you building an environment in which C.S. Lewis would get tarred and feathered and run out of town as a woke liberal? And if you don't like C.S. Lewis, you can substitute a lot of historic Christians. That's the whole thing we're saying is, if you read, there's a lot of ignorance of church history. If you read church history, you see, okay, yeah, in the current polarized landscape, a lot of Christians, even some historic fundamentalists, wouldn't fit in. That's what we're wrestling with. Some people have genuinely not come to understand.
Can I just throw a counterexample? If you are designing a political system, a Christian political system, where people like John Calvin and Martin Luther would be tarred and feathered, you're actually a greater problem. And
I feel like he was about to get to that, but yeah, I mean,
that's more the issue is like we have a bunch of Christians that would excommunicate Martin Luther because he wrote of the Jews and their lies.
Well, we have like literally the PCA, which would excommunicate the people that wrote the Westminster Confession.
Yes. So you want to talk about historic perspective?
And again, I was reading Matthew, where Jesus is talking about oh Jerusalem, who killed the prophets. You literally sawed one of them in half. It's just like, yeah, the Pharisees would brag about how they would be, if they were there in the days of the prophets, they would have been supporting them. But it's like, no, you would have tarred and feathered them too.
You would have tone policed them.
Yes.
So this is just absolute hypocrisy, and it's like it's a clear lack of historic perspective that he's even using C.S. Lewis as an example is a huge glaring lapse of perspective. You should have gone back with an earlier example.
How complicated some of these disagreements are, and the casting nuance as a bad idea is not helping us. Let's build something better. Let's build something that looks like Jesus. Let's build something that is marked by both truth and grace. Let's build something that is vigorous against error, but also thoughtful and recognizable to church history. Now, if you disagree with everything I just said in this video, can we at least have conversations about this where we're not at each other's throats? Can I put out a video like this, get on a plane tomorrow, and not have to deal with what has happened the last 6 times I've traveled, and that some controversy blows up, somebody's attacking me on X, and then I'm getting texts about it, and I'm having to clarify my position and this kind of thing, because of slander, because of lies. That's not the way, no matter what, no matter who's right and who's wrong. Even if every word I've said in this video is wrong, that's not helpful. So what I'm saying is, let's try to build an environment where good faith disagreements about the right political posture can at least talk, because even that is evaporating right now. I'll leave you with this passage. I have this printed on the mirror. Think about it every day before I record a video. My wife just reminded me of it. This is the way we want to point our sails and move into if we are followers of Jesus. 2 Timothy 2:23-25, Paul says, have nothing to do with foolish, ignorant controversies. There is a time to avoid discussions. He says, they breed quarrels. There's a lot in the pastoral epistles about avoiding quarrels. And the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone, able to teach, patiently enduring evil, correcting his opponents with gentleness. Let's do the correcting. Let's do the contending for the truth. But there's a lot in the New Testament that corresponds to those words. Gentleness, kind to all, patient. A lot of our discourse now does not look like that. Those are some of the issues on the right we're seeing. Of course, you also see them on the left. That's the point. That's the point. And all we're saying is we want to follow Jesus. We want to obey 2 Timothy 2. And I know others who disagree with the goals of this video feel the same. So that's where we got to keep talking. All right, I'm wrapping it up there. Woohoo! This was a fun one. I'll read the comments.
So, yeah, there was nothing there. Like, he didn't actually defend third wayism at all there. Like, am I wrong? Like, there was no real defense. There's like, don't dunk on it, or be gentle if you do dunk on it, but he didn't actually defend the merits of third wayism.
I mean, because at the end of the day, there really aren't any.
Yeah.
And it's not even posturing a third way. It's a method, it's a strategy. It's a method. It's not actually a vision or like a platform, so to speak, or dare I say ideology, because it's how you approach something,
Yeah,
and
it's just so empty.
thus you have to defend the tactic, and there's not really a defense of the tactic because the tactic is used as an appeal to a certain audience.
Yeah, it's an appeal to liberalism. It's an appeal to, women of both sexes, as some would say. And there's
So an
nothing to
appeal
it.
to the David French types, like it's like appealing to a niche. I mean, there's not really you're not actually appealing to the left because the left still hates God. You're not really appealing to the right because you're literally attacking them.
And the Tim Keller method didn't work.
No, he
But
became more like New York City. New York City did not become more like him.
yeah. And at least with Mark Driscoll, you could say, oh, there's a little bit of a revival in Seattle. There's some evidence of that. But you can't really say that of New York City and Tim Keller. So, anyway, moving on to the very related topic of young Republicans going woke. And I know you got an article in the queue about this.
Yes.
And what's funny is, like, I actually I was looking at the Young Republicans in Maryland, Young Republicans Maryland chapter, and it's like, oh, it's Jewish run. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
no, I
no way
saw
I'm going to
that.
join that. And then, anyway, so that happened like a couple of weeks ago because I'm maybe planning something, Republican activism in the state of Maryland. So then this story happens, and I'm just completely unsurprised. Like, hey, people have group chats with edgy texting, and then a Jewish guy, apparently named Gavin Wax, is the one being credited, and he's not spoken out and defended his innocence with leaking group chats to Politico. So I don't know if you want to take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, again, the way I begin this story is that we've had this. This has been a pattern all year long. So you have JD Vance coming out and defending a guy named Big Balls for his edgy tweets. And again, one of the things Big Balls said was, "You couldn't pay me to marry a brown woman," and JD Vance, married to a brown woman, defended him and had his job restored at Doge. So you have that example. And again, the media went after him. JD Vance actually, flexing a bit. He didn't have to do that. His chances in 2028 are not going to be hindered by him refusing to step in on a controversy, but instead he actually capes up for one of his own. And he basically says, "New sheriff in town. The cancel culture era is over." And he defended that guy. And again, Big Balls eventually got assaulted in D.C. And this past week, a black judge let the black criminals off, and they're going to go on to do more violence because that's what happens when you don't punish crime. So you have that issue. Then you have Shiloh Hendricks, dropping a hard R against a kid that was probably being delinquent and a thief, and was probably ascribed to be a lot younger than he actually looked. And then she called another dude that was recording it, a hard R, and the right wing came out to support her to a large sum of money. And again, that came after Austin Metcalf got murdered by a black guy
For no reason
for no
in
reason.
Texas.
So then you have that issue. Now, the one issue I did not actually put in the article was that American Reformer did cancel Badum Dum's article because he said a little bit too spicy things online. Again, all three of these events are not in group chats. They're actually in IRL. And yeah, American Reformer actually did do cancel culture on one of their own over, spicy things. And again, they act like they didn't know when you had to have known if you followed this guy. And again, I like him. I follow him. I like the edgy stuff he says. So you have, again, three examples where cancel culture happening this year, and then you have the young Republicans blow up.
Well, actually, you had
Because
some counter examples of canceling.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like the major examples where a lot of people came out in support.
Right.
So Political breaks the story. You have a bunch of group chats where edgy jokes were dropped. Apparently, there's 251 instances of some soft A's being dropped, some Hitler jokes, some F slurs, and they called black people watermelon. There's maybe a little bit of a rape joke. There's some Hitler jokes, like stuff that you might see in
I mean, let
group
he
chats.
who has not made a Hitler joke cast the first stone.
again, you got to keep in mind that people grew up obviously with online video games. You know, the whole Call of Duty game room
You're
thing is
thinking
a
our
big thing.
generation. You got to think a little bit younger here.
So
Kids these
that's where I'm
days
going.
don't know Call of Duty or Halo.
So, I mean, again, one thing I'll just note about the Hitler jokes is that it is kind of a way to transgress the predominant culture. It's kind of like, you know, giving the middle finger to your parents, so to speak, or just kind of like rebelling against the system, which again, this goes all the way. I mean, you can think of like rock and roll as doing that, especially since a lot of like rock music does play into, you know, one might say satanic themes, even, and again, satanic panic, somewhat overblown in certain areas, somewhat I will say under. Um, it did not fixate on some of the actual satanic stuff that was happening in other areas. So a mixed bag. But one thing they probably did overblow was like a lot of music that might have had certain themes in it at the time. And again, what people might have thought of as horribly evil then, again, a lot of it appealed to the youth. That's kind of what the Hitler jokes are today. And again, I'm not going around dropping Hitler or 1488s. But that is, and again, one thing I did not see in the report was any end towers, which I'm a little disappointed in their game. So
I mean, the rookie chat was at what 1% of the chat was edgy. It's like
yeah,
those are rookie numbers. This chat was tame, and the fact that they want to cancel a dude over this. No, the only person who should be canceled is the Gavin Wax guy who, seems to be the guy who leaked it.
no. So okay, so
And
here,
the other people in charge of these organizations and their chapters who
so
denounced it, they should all get canceled.
I got this from Milo, so take that for what it's worth. But the leaker in question, okay, so the chain of custody is that Gavin Wax was not in the chat. He demanded from a guy named Michael Bartles to give him the Telegram logs to a Restore YR chat. Bartles resisted at first these efforts of coercion from Gavin Wax, only to cave after he had been removed from his Young Republicans access. So I guess they basically retaliated against him for refusing to give over the logs. Then he gives over the logs, which again, to me, that's just a cowardice, nutless move. The point of a blackmail is that so they don't do the thing.
Yeah, it's like being honeypotted, or
Except he does the thing after, or he does the thing after he was already punished. So they really don't have any leverage over him because they already enacted the punishment. But moving on. So this
And can
Bartles,
we talk about the Restore YR? Like, why is there a chat called Restore YR?
because YR is basically known for being a neocon haven. There are stories about them. Again, one of my mutuals on Twitter, he kind of did some stuff in Georgia. He has stories, talks about how it's a Jeb Bush fan club. Obviously, the DCYR, I can tell you that they used to have a horrible reputation. And again, there are some good guys in there, so not trashing them, but there are there's new faces in that group that are trying to right the ship.
Now,
So there are scandals, there are neocons everywhere across a lot of the chapters. It is a mixed bag.
I mean, there is the guy in where I live, who's I guess the head of the YR where I live. He's somewhat involved in the state level, I guess. But yeah, he rolls with with the liberal Republican bloc of local politics here. So I don't want to give too much context, but he does seem to like me. So I could probably we could probably get along pretty well, despite these things.
So the chain of custody of the logs is that the Bartles gives the logs to a conduit of Gavin Wax named Nathan Berger, who is also on the YRR of New York. So again, two New York guys are involved in leaking the information, and that's who gave the information to Gavin Wax or gave the information directly to Politico. So that's the chain of custody. Now, one of the things they threatened Bartles with was they made salacious accusations against him or true accusations. I don't really know. He does not detail the accusations in the affidavit. And he alleges that I guess they were going to try to weaponize an NDA against him, which again, I don't actually know how that would be enforceable. without actually proving damages. Because again, in order to enforce an NDA, you actually do have to prove damages or that the information was sensitive to the business. Because again, you're doing it to conceal secrets that could damage the reputation of the firm or the individual, which again, you have to prove damages. That's kind of implicit in the NDA. So again, it does seem that a lot of people involved, they have something in common. I don't know if you want to like ring the bell, but that seems to be a lot of the characteristics of who these people were. But it should be noted that rather than just ignore the story, a lot of the YRR chapter or the YR chapters came out and bashed these people. And then you had actual party accounts bash them. You had Winsome Sears, who's like about to blow an election that Republicans should be able to win in Virginia. She came out and bashed him. And meanwhile, you have JD Vance on the other side actually caping up for these people. Matt Walsh is also caped up for these people.
And I'm sure Tucker Carlson's also caped up for these people.
Yes, he did. But he had I think he had
Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon on a recent interview.
Or he did an interview on Steve Bannon's War Room, I believe. So yeah. So it's kind of an interesting breakdown because this is really what the issue is. They want to make mean jokes or edgy jokes. They want to equate that to the violent political liberalism that we're seeing in this country. But at the end of the day, going back to what Gavin Ortlund said, because Gavin Ortland's like, oh, we need to, when he was going against the Netter point, no, one side wants to kill me and the other side might not like me, might have their problems, but the other side wants to kill me. The other side wants to groom kids.
These people are willing to go to the left in order to air their dirty laundry against their rivals, against people they don't like. They're willing to go. And again, that just shows that they view the left as less of a threat than they do the right. And that's why they're willing to do this.
As far as I'm concerned, like, I don't care about just a small sandbox, the ghetto of reformed evangelicalism and all that other stuff. I don't want to be locked in there fighting for petty market share with people like Justin Peters for the rest of my life. I don't want to do that at all.
My Twitter is mostly political anyway. Yeah, there's theology in there. There's some stuff, but I'm not doing slop apologetics. I hate that stuff.
This my account it's a Christian nationalist account. Let's be real. Like, that's what I believe. It's kind of what I've always believed. But, people like Stephen Wolf have given us a nice name for it. And he's got a nice political foundation for it, like oh, yes, it kind of clicks. Like, this makes sense. This is a good way to put what's clearly supported in Scripture.
Now, one thing I mentioned in the article is that the YR has such a horrible reputation. This is actually why someone like Charlie Kirk was able to supplant them with TPUSA. And it also should be noted that a lot of these organizations, let's just say the cowards know how to survive, the rats know how to find a safe haven, and I imagine the pay is not necessarily great for a lot of these entry level positions, which means you're going to get a certain type of individual that's going to take up these roles, which again leads to brain drain. And these are the roles that are maybe like getting people staffing positions inside the legislatures, including Congress. These are so that means you have a lot of, let's just say, cowards, snakes, rats. These are the types of people that are going to be occupying a lot of these organizations, so that they're willing to throw their peers under the bus should not come across as a surprise.
So let me just say two things. One, you're absolutely right to point out that Charlie Kirk defeated the Young Republicans to gain market share. And to be fair, Young Republicans, or TPUSA, was not the only group going after Young Republicans and just trying to supplant them. You had YAL and YAF, but clearly TPUSA became the dominant of the campus organizations and stuff like that.
And I think that's because they were distinctly MAGA. Being, Trump, being a diehard Trump supporter that Kirk was, I think that's why his brand was able to succeed, whereas others have kind of fizzled out a bit.
And then, so that was So that's a good point that you bring up. And then secondly, the absolute reaction from the internet on this has been fantastic, because even though you named a lot of organizations that have come out and condemned the people in this chat, the people on the right came through and supported these people, and you love to see that. We're not enforcing political correctness and woke blasphemy laws anymore, and that includes. And here's the thing: if you're not transgressing the post-war consensus, you're not particularly being useful. So,
Well, I mean, keep in mind, I mean, if you look at the victory of Donald Trump in 2016, he did everything that was brash and offensive. Like, this is the guy that had the locker room talk moment of where women, well, he claimed that women, like on tape, talking about how he could digitally penetrate a woman and that they would want him to do that to them.
because
That's
he's
how
rich.
much he's rich, he's got swagger. Like, he was bragging about, his game.
I mean, seriously, do you think Tyreek Hill is that smooth, or he just got a lot of money? Maybe a little bit of both, but still, women throw themselves at rich dudes. Happens all the time. I'm gonna do a last call for questions because we don't have to go too long for tonight. But yeah, I'm just very encouraged by the response I'm seeing by this. Because let's face it, that group chat was tame, and for it to be considered a national issue, no. That Gavin Wax guy, man, very related, because two Gavins we're talking about tonight. He should be blacklisted from Republican politics.
No, absolutely. People like him are going to try to like turn the Republican Party back into this failed neoconservative movement. And again, that's what young Republicans kind of was doing. They were kind of a haven for getting a lot of these like neocon, never Trumper types, these people that, kind of snakish. And that was the reputation. Except, again, there were pockets that were different. Obviously, Texas is Texas, so they're actually like actual Texans that are
Now, I
occupying that
understand
land.
that they're not affiliated with a national organization,
No, fair
which
enough.
might be the reason why. So, but yeah, and maybe Arizona had a more nuanced take and stuff like that. But overall, it's like you're right. This organization is reputationally liberal, and therefore we shouldn't be surprised that they have these, that they're willing to enforce woke blasphemy laws and sell out their own because they have no sense of leadership. And
Again, the lesson in this is that you cannot sell out your allies. You cannot sell out your friends. And yes, you could say that they said some unsavory things, but a lot of the people you need to align with to defeat the left probably said some unsavory things. And that's just something you have to do. You have to be willing to align with people. You have to be willing to make friends if you want to actually defeat the left. If you
I mean, you
actually
can't be
believe,
too tribal, is what
I
you're
know
saying?
if you actually believe the left is a threat, if you actually believe that the mass immigration policies are going to existentially alter and damage America, then you have to be willing to make friends. And again, people like Nick Fuentes, that's his biggest flaw, is that he doesn't know how to build those bridges. He can amass a movement, he can amass an audience, or I should say, he can amass an audience. He cannot translate that into a movement because he does not know how to make friends.
Or keep friends. I think it might be your bigger concern.
And friendship is necessary.
Because
And
friend-enemy distinction.
yes,
You need to have
loyalty.
friends for a friend-enemy distinction.
Loyalty.
And can I need to make a biblical point. What J.D. Vance did was servant leadership. He stuck his neck out of the line for a foot soldier in the movement. That is servant leadership. And people don't like his wife. I get it. But that type of leadership inspires a loyalty. Him defending big balls, him defending that heavy set, well-dressed man that was, I guess, ousted by the group chat or whatever. That is leadership that inspires loyalty. That is servant leadership. And that's why he'll be president one day. So those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, loyalty is the highest political virtue. And all we have to do is just point to the words of Christ, that greater love hath no man than this. that a man laid down his life for his friends.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that for now. My name's Rez. This is Anthony. If you like this, do also subscribe to the channel, to the podcast if you're new. Have a blessed day. Stay based. Christ is King, and we will catch you on the next one.